Welcome back to the Wellness Check. I just finished with my last client of the day, and I thought I would add another video to kick off this series about all things developmental needs meeting strategy, which is a mouthful, and it's truthfully a very involved type of therapy that is very important for people who need extra support before starting trauma processing like EMDR or Brainspotting. So in my last video, where I just did a very short blurb on an introduction to DNMS and what is it, I want to expand on what I mean by childhood unmet needs and by attachment wounds, because these are not words that get thrown around willy-nilly just in the public. They do in the therapist's office, but not just everywhere all the time. So I thought that as an extra additional layer of support here, I'd talk about what this is and who might actually be a really good candidate for DNMS therapy, especially if they're wanting to come in for trauma work. So when it comes to childhood unmet needs, what are we talking about? Where we see unmet needs, we will also see what we call attachment wounds. And that's a whole entire, it's a whole entire school of psychology relating to attachments. What are they? Basically, when we are young, when we are children, even infants, we rely on our caregivers to provide for us many, many things, not only food and shelter, but also things that help us become psychologically resilient and strong. So the things that we need in infancy and childhood and in adolescence from our caregivers, whether this is a mom and dad or adoptive parents or grandparents, whatever that situation looks like, there are fundamental needs that we have. We need to be validated. We need to feel like we are in a safe and predictable environment. We need to feel like we can safely share our own feelings, as well as have our parents or our caregivers be able to model how to share and experience all of the emotions. We call that emotional maturity. We need to be modeled healthy communication styles to know that it's okay to feel this way or that way and that we'll work together as a team. We need safe touch, like hugs. We need encouragement to keep exploring and discovering that are developmentally appropriate. We need a lot of these things. And it's the absence of these things that really lead to attachment wounds and unmet childhood needs. Whereas in a lot of my other videos, I'm talking about overt things like abuse or I'm trying to think of like the really obvious ones: abuse or divorce or the loss of someone through death or through an accident, a house burning down. Those are things that we talk about when it comes to like trauma that is very appropriate right out the get-go to start with the EMDR. But it's the absence of unconditional regard and love from our caregivers that lead to attachment wounds. And we know that we have attachment wound issues if we have trouble relating to others, if we feel this push-pull. So sometimes individuals can be really, we call it codependent, but just kind of dependent on a relationship, feeling as though they can't make it on their own. They need a partner in their life to help guide them and to help make them feel better about themselves. And we can see the total opposite as well, where people are very avoidant and push others away. If someone feels like another person is getting too close to them, they find ways to either hurt that person, you know what I mean, like hurt their feelings or push them away or avoid them because it doesn't feel safe to let people in. These are just a couple of the many telltale signs that there's a dysfunction somewhere in someone's attachment style. So when we're working with people, we always want to make sure as therapists, right, especially as trauma-informed therapists, that we're getting a really good inventory of what this person's presenting attachment style is, and getting a thorough history of their background to see, like, what was it like to be a kid? What were your parents like? What kind of environment did you grow up in? Was it stable? Was it predictable? Was it safe? Was it accommodating to your feelings? Were you able to share stuff? And if not, what did that look like? In a nutshell, that is as concise as I can make it when describing the impact of unmet childhood needs and attachment wounds on an adult as they grow up and they continue to develop, and now we're full-fledged adults. So this is where the DNMS, developmental needs meeting strategy, comes in really handy. You don't want to just jump into trauma processing with someone who hasn't yet had that foundation of safety and emotional maturity and unconditional positive regard and all of those things. It will feel untrustworthy, maybe is a good way to put that. It might make the person feel like, I don't know you. I'm not talking to you about these things. I'm certainly not going to let you in. We have to create this foundation for them and with them through this protocol. There's a lot of what we call reparenting that happens in the DNMS. I get tongue twisted saying that sometimes. A lot of reparenting, and reparenting is a thing on its own, but it's also a constituent of this, where you begin to discover what your unmet needs are. And once you have an idea of what was lacking and how that feels and how it interrupts your, daily life now, then the fun starts and we get to figure out the best ways in which you can give yourself those things as an adult. And it's really important to note that when setting out on a healing journey like this, you learn to do these things first and foremost for yourself, by yourself, instead of relying on anyone else, friends or partners or society or anything to repair that for you. There's a whole, I'm not going to go into it, but we want to help you develop that resiliency and that confidence within yourself. That's really what's going to set the stage for all of the healing. So in my next video, I'm going to talk a little bit more about what the protocol looks like and what to expect if you want to find yourself a trained or certified DNMS, developmental needs meeting strategy therapist. Thank you for checking in with your wellness. I'll see you soon.